Hello, everybody. It looks like we are live. I'm just trying to make sure that everyone is here and that you can see me okay. Get a little bit of water here before we start. Okay. So, can somebody leave a comment there to see if they can see me? Okay, Janine, looks like you can see me. Perfect. Thank you so much, you guys. Well, I am really excited to be sharing this talk with you today. This is our new night, Tuesday nights, that I'll be doing these Facebook Live talks, and they will be on this main page, this Gregory Jamiel Healing Ceremonies and Processes page. Now, for those of you who are already a member of our healing community, it's a private group. So if you're watching this video in that private page, I won't be able to see your comments. So hop on over to the Greg Jamiel Healing Ceremonies and Processes page, and we'll be able to see you and answer your questions there. I'll definitely be scrolling around these and making sure that we can see you and interact with you too. So if I don't mention your question, please make sure that you're on the Greg Jamiel, the main page there, the Healing Ceremonies and Processes. So I want to start off with a few bookkeeping things real quick. You can book a session with me on my website, gregoryjamiel.com, and I have some openings coming up next week, so you can totally grab one of those and we can work together next week. I also have a very exciting workshop coming up called Mantras and Our Voice as Medicine. Now, we spoke earlier on the Facebook Live a couple of weeks ago about the power of vibrations. And what this upcoming workshop will do is express to you how to use mantras in your life, how they work, and the benefit of using them, as well as working with our voice as medicine. So we can really see how those vibrations echo out into the universe and help create the world that we're living in. So you can check that out. That's going to be on Monday, March 22nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you can find that there. And also the final very exciting thing that we have to talk about today is my Chakra course will be starting the first week in April. If you go to my website, you can read up about it. And next week, I'll be opening enrollment for it. Now, we've been talking about this for a while, and I want to talk briefly about this. It's a month-long program that I will be doing with you. So each week, you will get an email that says, hey, all these videos are up. And so the first week, we will do chakras 1, 2, and 3. The second week, we will focus on the heart chakra, which is chakra 4. So the whole week will be dedicated to that because that's a very powerful chakra that a lot of us need some help and wisdom in balancing and getting to know a little bit better. Then the third week will be chakras 5, 6, and 7. And the fourth and final week will be how to balance all of these chakras together, how to integrate them in your life, and how to really heal from them and see how they impact your life on a daily basis. So I'm very excited about this. We've been working and talking about this for a long time. So the first week in April, we will be live together. Now you will get an email saying what will happen that week, and you'll have all the videos you can watch. And then Sunday night, we will do an hour-long recap together through Zoom. So if you have any questions, you can ask them at that time, and I'll answer them for you at that time. So, all right, now that that stuff is out of the way, we get to the good stuff, which is today's talk about common shamanistic things, spiritual things that may impact our life. And I want to talk about this in 3 different ways. So, I'll begin by saying when you have a physical ailment, when you break a bone or you have an illness, you go to the hospital and the doctor will take care of that physical issue for you. When we suffer from emotional or psychological things, we go to a psychiatrist. So that treats the mind, that treats the mental area of it. But one of the areas that we kind of overlook is the spiritual realm. And everything around us has a physical, emotional, and spiritual component to it. Now, for the spiritual component, some people go to their priest, some people go to medicine people or shamans, or myself, which I'm a traditional ceremonial worker. I don't like that word shaman. It feels a little strange for me to say that, but I do work in traditional ceremonies. So I want to talk a little bit about what I see for people when they come up and why some of these issues come up in general. So let's see here. Trauma. Trauma is the big one. Trauma is something that impacts all of our life. And the level and severity of trauma is really relative to the person. Some people may have a traumatic experience from getting a bad grade in school. Other people may have a traumatic experience from losing a child or a partner. So there is trauma expressed in many different areas. And the reason I'm saying that to start off with this is I will circle back to this at the end of this talk. We are all experiencing little micro traumas all throughout our life, all throughout our day, even. And so it's important to feel grounded and know who you are so that when these traumas come, you're able to weather that storm. Now, one of the things that happens when we experience a trauma is a little piece of our soul for self defense kind of slips away. And if you've ever been in a car accident or when you first receive the news that somebody has passed on, or if your relationship is ending and you broke up with someone, if you are on the receiving end of that, I'm sure we can look back at this and remember we might have felt a little um, foggy in the mind or even just disoriented. And part of that feeling is because a little bit of our spirit, a little bit of our soul is kind of pulling back away for self defense to kind of protect us. So that's something that happens all over the place every time we experience a trauma. Our body does this as a way to self defend itself or self protect itself. So, yeah, so that is a little piece of that. Now, two common things that I find when I'm working with people, and let me back up for a moment. The way shamans work with people, the way people who work with traditional ceremonies and medicines, is we resonate with the natural tools of the planet, of the earth. And so if you think about it, when you look outside, the trees around us, the water around us, the rivers and the oceans, the mountains around us, they all have a spirit. There are animals like bears and cougars and eagles. All of these things, when we see them, we're like, oh, yes. Like, when you see an eagle, it's so rare that everyone kind of looks up and goes, oh, look, an eagle. That's awesome. And so there's something about that eagle. There's something about that animal that touches your soul and it speaks to you on a spiritual level. For those of us who work with people to help them heal their traumas and heal their wounds, we work with the natural world. So I have some examples of these tools right here with me that I want to just share with you. So this is my fan. This is one of the fans that I use. And if you think about it, the way I like to describe this is, and it's beautiful. I want you to see the handle and everything. It's really gorgeous, a beaded handle, and it has representation to it. Everything means something in this fan that is put together. Now, another tool that we use a lot is drums, or our drums. And this is a bear hide drum that I made a couple of years ago. And if you think about it, this is the point that I want to get across. This skin, this hide that was made out of this drum, this feather, this bird that had these feathers here, the bird was alive at one time, flying around the earth, getting rain on its wings and eating berries and stuff. This bear, the same thing. When this bear was alive, it was moving around, feeling the sun on its skin and eating the earth, eating the different plants that come out of the earth. Now that this bear has passed on and we've incorporated its hide into our drum, when I play this drum, that spirit of that bear comes back to life. So that I'm hoping will help kind of let you understand why we use certain tools during our ceremonies when we're helping people heal from these traumas and also reclaim a piece of their soul. It is all within the natural world. For those of you who that have taken my smudging webinar on my website and the archetypes webinar, you'll know that we work with grandmother sage. We also work with Palo Santo. So all of the offerings that we do, whether it is a plant or a piece of wood, are all things in nature because grandmother sage has a spirit. The spirit has certain skills that it uses to work with us on our spiritual level. Same thing here with Palo Santo. You would use Palo Santo for a different reason than you would use the white sage. And if you notice, both of these are being burnt in my abalone shell. So that's why some of these elements are all made from natural things. We're not using man-made tools. We're using the natural elements, the feathers and the plants like sage and cedar and the drums. Now, I just wanted to say that because that kind of shows if you can connect with the spirit, that these things have spirits in them, then you can connect with, hey, the ocean has a spirit. When I go sit by the ocean, after a day, I grew up in Rhode Island, so for me the ocean is it was a big part of my growing up. And so when I go sit by the ocean, it takes me home. It makes me remember who I am and where I grew up. It reminds me of my mom and dad and a lot of the experiences that we had as a child. When I come here and walk in the mountains, I spend time that earth element that is in my body is connecting and resonating with the earth energy around me. And so after spending a day out in the woods, I come back and feel refreshed. I feel rejuvenated. I feel alive. And so that happens with the natural world around us. For those of you who have ever sat by a fire, I'm sure you can feel that hypnotizing energy as that fire draws you in. It wants to teach you something. That's that grandfather fire energy. And so that fire, the way I describe it, that fire element is seeing and honoring and resonating with the fire element that is in my own body too. So just I kind of wanted to put a few things in perspective for that for you. And again, if you have questions anytime you're doing this, just write them in here. I see here, Heidi, when I experienced trauma, I needed to sit on the ground or floor. Is that normal? Heidi, that is absolutely normal. And that's what I'm saying. When we experience something like a car accident, I'm sure you've driven by one and you kind of look and there's someone sitting on the ground. And if you've ever had the unfortunate experience to be in one, I've been in one too, and I remember just sitting there like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do next. And so your spirit is just kind of waiting for some direction. And that trauma is just kind of pulling a little piece of yourself out of that. So, yes, when you experience trauma, you may very well have to sit down. You need to feel that ground below you. And most likely, you've been sitting on the earth too, and just kind of sit there and feel that energy of support. Let me grab a sip of water here for just a moment. Now, I want to go into the main part of this talk today. The main part of this are the two common things that people who work with this shamanistic energy we see with people we work with. One of them is a loss of power. So if someone suffers a loss of power, what that means is that their spirit guide or their angels or whoever is protecting them, their guardian spirit, has left for one reason or another. And so that person is left without power, without direction and focus. And some of the ailments that may come from this are chronic depression, suicidal tendencies, chronic fatigue. And I want to clarify something with that too. Just because you may feel depressed or you may feel tired at one time or another, that doesn't mean that it's chronic. What this means is fatigue and depression that last a very long time, and even such in a way that certain things in your life will compound on each other. So you may wake up and get the bad news on the phone, and then you drive to work and you get into a car accident, and then you get to work and you get fired. It's like all these things kind of compound in bad luck, and they really kind of take a lot out of you. Now, it's important to remember the spiritual world does not protect us from experiences that will help us grow. But when it is chronic, when it is unusually consistent, that's where it may be important to go talk to a priest or a medicine person or, like me, a traditional ceremonial worker. We as people who work in these realms, when we do our ceremonies for someone who has lost power, we try to find an ally. We try to find a spirit on the other side that will volunteer to come in and work with this person to help bring them back together, bring them back into balance. And that's kind of the main goal of a lot of the things that people who work in shamanistic practices do. We try to bring balance back to the mind, body, and spirit. And so that's a huge goal in any of the processes that we do. I'll take one other question here. Janine says, I find that when I am at the ocean, I too feel I'm at peace. It is so soothing no matter what time of year. It's so healing for my soul. So Janine, I hear you on that. And again, once again, I just want to say, it's that water element that we're seeing at the ocean, that vibration of the ocean, that vastness of the water that is resonating and connecting with the water that comprises our bodies. And so I'm sure you've heard this before. We're about 80% comprised of water. So we have about 80% of us is vibrating at the same resonance that that ocean or river or even rain and snow is vibrating at. So when you sit out there and you connect with it for a while, it does bring a sense of peace to your mind, body, and spirit. Carmen says, why would a spirit guide leave a person to begin with? That's a fantastic question, Carmen. It's great to see you too. So one of the reasons is trauma, again, so that can spook someone. Another reason is the actions of the human. So if we have someone, let's say, who is choosing to make choices and bad decisions in their life, we've expressed this before, that the spirit world, the guides that we have, may bring people into our life or may have circumstances cross our path for us to learn from and grow from. But our guides do not necessarily step in the way of a moving car. Those are the angels. The angels will come in and literally remove you from the situation. But if we continuously defy those beautiful opportunities that are placed in front of us and choose to take a different path, the spirits that are working with us may say, hey, we're done working here for a while. And so that's one reason they may leave. Another reason is through trauma too, with just that spookiness. Trauma is a huge umbrella. Um, the loss of a loved one, the loss of a job, moving, these are all traumatic situations. So for one reason or another, something may happen where that spirit guide decides to leave. So I'll move on to that second thing. The first one is loss of power. The second one is loss of soul. And actually, I feel bad here. I want to, Deborah is writing a few things here. So let me just answer your question here, Deborah. In the middle of work, which is so stressful, what can we do to calm down? Beautiful question, Deborah. So, one of the things that I really like to teach are grounding techniques. And the best thing you can do is take a breath. So, when we live in our head, when we're at work, possibly sitting at a desk all day and interacting with a computer, especially now, since a lot of people are working from home, we're doing a lot of stuff online. We are not moving or connected to our physical body. So, everything is happening up here. And we all know when we think things too much, our minds are creative and they are amazing and fantastic and can do these wondrous things. But our mind can also spin ourselves in a certain direction that is unhealthy for us. And what I mean by that is we may overthink a certain question over and over and over. And I'm sure all of us have experienced that feeling of like, oh my God, I'm driving myself nuts. So our minds can do that for us. So the best thing to do when you are at work in the middle of the day and you don't need to make a big deal about it if you're around people is to close your eyes and just take a breath and to shift back into your body. And what I mean by that is when you breathe in, notice where your body expands. Maybe it's your belly, maybe it's your chest or your ribs, or maybe if we're a little disconnected from our body, it might be very shallow and we might feel it in our collarbones. So by taking 3 to 4 breaths and closing your eyes, maybe imagining yourself at a beach or in the ocean, or excuse me, at a beach or in the woods or something like that, you can bring yourself to a sense of peace and calm at work without having to make a big deal about it. Just close your eyes and take a few breaths, Deborah. And I know you put some other questions in there. I'll totally get to those too. I want to finish the second thought though, real quickly. The second reason that people they come to shamans or people who work in these shamanistic ways is a loss of soul. Now, when we suffer a trauma, I had mentioned earlier, a little piece of our soul kind of pulls away for self defense. Some people call it our inner child. They may say, that inner child is being protected by our spirit, and so it kind of pulls away a little bit. Some of these things are a loss of life force, a loss of essence, or something like that. When we experience a death of a loved one or a child or a partner, these are major losses in our life, and it's really difficult for any of us to um, get back to quote unquote normal in a reasonable amount of time. This is something that there is no normal after that. When we experience the loss of a loved one or a partner or anything like that, there is a new normal that is formed. And in my mind, I lost my mom when she fell asleep and she just passed away when I was 21. She was 42. And because we were so young, my siblings and I didn't really know how to deal with that type of loss. And it was the first death that we had ever experienced. And my dad was consumed with his own grief too. And so a lot of us had to kind of figure out how to move forward, how to heal from this. And the strange thing, I was talking to this with one of the people I work with earlier today. A lot of our siblings, a lot of our friends, nobody can really understand what you're going through unless they have experienced a similar type of loss. And I mean that with all the love in my heart. My friends at that time were trying to be as supportive as they could, but I was the first one to lose a mom or a dad in our group. And so it's just difficult. It's a different situation. There is an understanding that you experience or you gain only by going through that process. And so, that was when I was 21. I'm 43 now. So over these years, my other friends have lost their parents and they've come back and said, hey, now we understand what you were saying back when you were 21. So that sense of losing someone, that deep trauma, there is a reorganization of normal in our life. There's a redefinition of what you do when you wake up in the morning when you suffer a loss like that. And when you lose that piece of soul, our psyche kind of, it does something. It wants to protect us. And so it kind of pulls a little piece of that child out of our body and kind of keeps it in a safe place for us. Now, a shaman, someone who works in these shamanistic ways, will go after and find those pieces of soul that have been removed and try to help bring them back into that person with the ultimate goal, yet again, of bringing balance to the mind, body, and spirit of the person they're working with. Now, I want to explain this part briefly because this all comes into play with the main thing I'm talking about. All of us have experienced some type of trauma in our life at one time or another. All of us have little pieces of our soul that have been fragmented by the experiences of our life. Our planet is suffering a global loss of soul. People all around the world are suffering and feeling this trauma. And over these past few years, I think we've even talked about it before on my Thursday night talks about picking up that global empathy, seeing and feeling the things around us, and realizing that there is a shift happening. There is something going on globally. So let's just lay this thing out. A lot of people are having trauma in the world. A lot of people in the world are missing pieces of their soul. Now, adding on to this, right? We're in this developmental stage where money is more important than life. And so that is really the paramount is money. And so if you look down at the rainforest in the Amazon, rainforests are being cleared and orangutans are being eradicated for the sole purpose of being able to grow a certain crop on there that is more lucrative than the diversity of the rainforest. And I will say this unapologetically, no one who is fully embodied with their soul would ever make that decision that money is more important than life. And so that's something to just think about. That's not, being any way. It's just this is how things are in our world at this time. So you have people walking around who are missing pieces of their soul. You have other people who are angry and frustrated. And this is the main thing. The importance is to figure out how we can deal with our emotions in a healthy way. Our emotions are vibrations. I talked about it the last time. The mantras, our voice is medicine, our voice is power and energy. Our voice can also be used as poison. When we're in a fight with someone, when we're angry at someone, I hate that person, that guy, oh my God, whatever, you kind of just yell, I hate that. And so that energy, that vibration carries around the planet. It moves around your neighborhood. And so let's say Bob is walking to work one day and all of a sudden he gets hit with one of these spiritual darts or these kind of negative energies that are going around out there. Bob all of a sudden comes down with this case of fatigue and he doesn't know why, but one day he just feels really tired and unguided and he can't focus and he doesn't know what happened. Nothing really, he can't really put a finger on it, but something happened there. And so this is where I just want to show that the circular connectedness that everyone has together. We are all missing pieces of our spirit. We are all hurting in one way or another, or at least have suffered trauma in one way or another. And if we don't understand how to express ourselves in a healthy way, it can cause damage to not only ourselves and those around us, but just random people around the world. And you may have actually been a recipient of one of those psychic darts or those negative, whatever you want to call them, those negative energies out there. And so I just wanted to kind of put those things into perspective that when we are trying to express our anger, to try to do it in a way that we express it and then we let go of the attachment to it. So if somebody wronged you, it's like, express yourself. The thing that person did is a really sucky thing, and I hate it, and I'm going to let that person go. And release yourself from any of that attachment to festering over that person and thinking about that person and rehashing in your creative mind what that person did to you over and over again. And so that again can kind of help us move through life in a way that is more grounded and peaceful and calm, which is the ultimate goal of all of us, is to live our truth, to live in a way that we feel good in our mind, body, and spirit. And those of us who work in these shamanistic ways can help you bring that balance back into your life using some of the tools that I showed you before, the drum and the fans and all that stuff. So I know I've kind of hammered away over here. It's 5:25, but I'm going to keep talking here and answer your questions at this point. So if you need to go, I'm so glad you joined us and thank you for watching. Every Tuesday I'll be on here giving these talks. But I'm going to continue here. So let me go through our questions. And if you guys have any questions at all, please write them in here. Because it's just me, myself here today, I'm just going to scroll through here. Let's see. Deborah says, on Heidi's point, why do we fall to our knees upon hearing devastating news? Deborah, that's a great question. And I think I answered that earlier, where it just takes a little piece of us. It takes a piece of our spirit there, and it confuses our mind. And so that's a big thing there. Kathy, once I started to fully awaken to who I am, it became even more difficult to be around people. I could feel every negative emotion out there. Kathy, that's a great thing to share. So thank you for sharing that. One of the things that I would recommend is boundaries. Healthy boundaries are important for all of us. And it's very true. When we start to become more aware of ourself and become more connected to ourself, we can feel things around us in our community, in our friendship circles, a lot easier. And one of the things that you can do is that practice of letting it go. I just spoke about this a moment ago, when you express your anger and then lose that attachment to it. So I can be walking around the grocery store, and all of a sudden I can be like, I feel a little anxious. I know I'm not anxious, but I feel anxiety. And I kind of look around, and maybe I see a mother, kind of working with two kids and trying to put food in the cart, and or I'm sure I might be picking up that anxiety from her. And so I can wish her well and know that that anxiety is not mine, and try my best to let it just move through me and out of me. It's when we try to hold on to things that we don't understand whose thing it is. So if we start to feel anxious, for example, and it's not our own anxiety, we can actually manifest that anxiety in ourselves by constantly replaying that thought in our mind. I'm anxious. I'm feeling anxious. I don't know why, but I'm just anxious. And so that's part of that process of breathing, taking deep breaths, and allowing those feelings of anxiety to move out, because you are not anxious. You are Kathy. You are not anxious. You may have feelings of anxiety, but those feelings of anxiety can move out of you too. Janine says, I find that when I am at the ocean, I too feel at peace. It was so soothing no matter what time. Oh, Janine, I read this one. Sorry about that. Yes, I totally agree with you. So let's scroll down. Sorry, this is a little confusing, me doing it by myself. Vishashka, I get a lot of peace sitting next to the ocean, but unfortunately, I don't live near the sea. How can I get this experience without traveling to the ocean? This is a fantastic question. I will have to I'll share on my page here a ceremony that I did in Machu Picchu, and it's something I called an earth pulling ceremony. I'll talk about this more, but basically, if you think about it, the whole entire Earth's crust is all connected, right? So it goes under the ocean, it goes above it, and again, talking about energy and currents and all of that thing. All of the land is connected, and so when I was traveling, I was teaching yoga around the world and ceremonies over in Europe for a long time, and I missed my home. I missed my dog. I missed my friends, and so I went out into a park one day. I think it was in Madrid or one of those places, and I just sat and put my hands on the earth, and I closed my eyes, and I literally retraced where that earth was. How, okay, I could move to the left and go all the way across Spain, and feeling it's still that earth. Go underneath the ocean, go over to Rhode Island where I grew up, and then go all the way over the Rocky Mountains, picturing it in my mind, moving through that land, and then eventually coming back to my garden here in my home. And for those brief couple of moments, I could feel that peace in my own heart. From traveling, I felt at home. And so that energy, those currents you can tap into. Same thing with the ocean. If you have a bowl of water, I have my moon water here. This water is the same water that I can picture in my mind when I feel the ocean, or when we have the Tolt River right next to our home here. When I think of that river, that's water as well. So if I'm not near it, I can sit here and hold that water and take a sip of it and close my eyes and visualize the feelings of sitting by the ocean or the river at one time in my life. And that will really help kind of connect you back with that place. And thank you for asking that, because I will definitely share that. It's on one of my Explore and Exhale videos from Machu Picchu. So let's see here. Joanna, watching my husband die for over a year, since he passed, my life has never been the same. Joanna, it's very true that, like I said, it's the experience of death, the experience of losing someone, it changes our normal, and it's up to us to be able to um, remember the blessings we have in our life, remember the reason we're here, remember the gifts that we have all around us, and try to connect with that. That is really a balm for our soul. That's something that helps us feel better when we can feel appreciated and loved by those around us, our community, our home, our job, our whatever it is, the things that we're grateful for. Um, and also remembering too, like I think of my mom often when she died. I looked at my dad, and my dad did not want to move forward from that. You know, he never got to make his peace with my mom. She just died in her sleep. And so I think he held on to that for 13 years, to be honest. He had diabetes, and he let that disease ravage him over those years, um, because of his guilt. And he never was able to move on. Although I know my mother would never want him to do that. I know my mother would never want me to do that. She would want us to live our life. And so that's the tough part, is how can you move forward honoring them and keeping them a strong part of who you are, and spreading their memory around the world in their honor, doing things, doing good, beautiful things for people in honor of them. All of the people that I work with, when I say my prayers, or do my intentions around them, when I'm working with the sacred ones, I always call out to my mom. My mom is a nurse. And so I kind of feel like that healing energy, it's not coming from me. I feel like it's coming from my mom when I work with people. So I hope that helps, Joanna. I'm going to answer a few more here too. Are there medical diagnoses that cause trauma? So, Gail, that's a very interesting question. Are there medical diagnoses that cause trauma? If I'm understanding this correctly, what I'm imagining in my mind is, if someone has a medical diagnosis of cancer, for example, that would be something that would cause trauma. Something that the person may feel is something that's very heavy or very serious. Some type of diagnosis like that could cause trauma. And I think in the medical field, there are different tools out there for people to be able to get the help and support they need when it comes to the medical diagnosis. And so that, like support groups and things like that, can be really beneficial to the person. But yes, I think if I'm understanding your question, I think if I received a diagnosis of cancer, it would be traumatic for me. I know that. So yes, I think that that can definitely happen. Um, Bonnie, you got it right, girl. We cannot control others, just ourselves. That is the huge thing there. And Bonnie, I know Bonnie. I'm really good friends with Bonnie, and so just kind of reaching out to her too, remembering some of the things that we talked about. It's like this ecosystem that we have here, our body, our mind, our spirit, is comprised of the waters out there. It's comprised of the fire out there in our heart, the earth, the meat part of our body. This is our earth, and then of course the air in our lungs. We are comprised of these four elements. We have our own ecosystem, and so trying to keep our ecosystem healthy and vibrant and clean and positive will radiate out to other members in our household, other members in our family, and eventually other members in our community too. Let's see here. I'm going to go through and answer a few more questions for you. Love the sound of the ocean. I think a lot of people love that ocean there. Mary Lou, my cousin, how do you quiet your mind when you go to bed? Mary Lou, that's a fantastic question. So one of the things that I do are breathing techniques. So I'll definitely, if I'm having a stressful day and I know that something is going on that's going to keep me awake, I will definitely do a breathing technique where the exhale is longer than the inhale. So I may inhale for a count of 2 and then exhale for a count of 4. So that is one powerful way. And I would do that for like 5 minutes too. And that will help down regulate your body. And it's also a matter of mind over matter. There is a chance, there is a possibility, there's a thing that we can say. I said this to myself a couple of nights ago. Greg, you are about to enter this change. This is stressful. You need your sleep to be able to handle this at 100%. And so go to sleep, rest yourself. And I have to consciously convince myself to go to sleep. Now, one of the other things I'll have to share really quickly is a candle gazing practice that I love to do. Oh no, I don't have my lighter. Oh no, I do have a lighter here. Here we go. So let me light this candle real quick. And I'll talk more about this. If you work in a private session with me, I really go into detail with this. But I light a candle, I light a flame. And at night before I go to bed, Mary Lou, I will close my eye, not close my eyes. I shut the lights off and I soften my eyes and I gaze at that candle. And I allow my conscious mind to focus on that flame, to look at all those details of the flame. And I really kind of see myself in the middle of that flame. And I let my shoulders relax. I let my jaw relax. I let my mind relax. And so doing this is an active form of meditation. And if you do it in your room with the lights off and just a candle, please do it sitting up so you don't fall asleep and leave a candle on. But it really calms you. It really down regulates your body. And for those people who have worked with me and done this with me, it really makes a difference. It's a huge, powerful thing to do when you're falling asleep if you're having a hard time sleeping. So Mary Lou, I hope that that helps you too. And I love you, cousin. It's good to see you on here. Let's see here. Kathy Green, very good of you to care enough not to watch the clock. Your time is precious. I'm very excited about this, Kathy, and really looking forward to this. So I'm scrolling down here, and it looks like I've answered most of the questions. So I thank you all so much. I know we've gone a few minutes over, but if you, I'm gonna have this posted again. It'll be on here. So if you have other questions, just send them in to me, and I'll answer them for you. And of course, again, I just want to reiterate that workshop because that's going to be really beautiful. Monday, March 22nd from 5 to 6:30 p.m. Mantras and Our Voices Medicine. And I'm working on my website. I'm building a course catalog for us so that when you go in and you purchase one of the workshops, you can view it as a course. And so that should be done in the next couple of days. So maybe next week, check on the website and you'll be able to book that workshop. And once again, the chakra balancing course is coming in April. And I'll share more about that in the future. But I thank you all so much. It was fantastic to see you. And I hope you learned something about our shamanistic ways and how we use these natural elements to help bring balance to your mind, body, and spirit. And as always, you can go to gregoryjamiel.com to book a session with me. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you next week. Have a great night and sweet dreams.